Good morning. So we are meeting again after a long time. So let's continue further. So what we had done? So we were done with the first two modules, which were what? First was introduction to microwaves, where we studied basically matching of techniques, and we also introduced a very new term which was scattering parameters, right? So that was the most important things which we studied in first module. For second module we mainly studied waveguides and other devices like E-plane T, magic T, resonators, etc., right? So that for so till that we have come in this course. So let's start with the third module, which is microwave tubes. So let me first make it full screen. Yeah, so let's start with this. So the as usual, what is the first question we get is why use microwave tubes? The simple reason is that because the conventional microwave tubes fail at high frequencies. So what are the conventional microwave tubes? Can you think of them? So there are tetrodes, triodes, pentodes, etc. So these are the conventional microwave tubes. The problem with them is that they cannot be used greater than 300 megahertz. So why you cannot use them for greater than 300 megahertz is because of these three effects. So the first effect is inter-electrode capacitance and lead inductance effect. Then transit time effect, effect due to RF losses and radiation losses. So all these three effects contribute to their not using at 300 megahertz or above. Right? So if you want further explanation of this, you can refer your books. So this won't be asked in the exam what is the meaning of this, but if you observe, we have already studied one effect, which is transit time effect. So what is transit time effect? Do you remember? Can you think of it? So we had studied this in electromagnetics course, right? The very first lecture. How did we introduce this concept? We started with a simple DC circuit. So it was consisting of a voltage source in series with a resistor. We said that by applying KVL we'll get V minus IR equal to 0. So what we assume that the potential is 0 everywhere where there is no component. But the moment you go to high frequency, what happens that there is a potential difference. That is what we studied in transit time. And how is that possible? Because any signal cannot travel with infinite velocity. So it takes a finite amount of time to travel from point A to point B, right? So the moment it goes from AA prime say to BB prime, it has taken some transit time to travel from AA prime to BB prime. So by the time the signal from AA prime travels to BB prime, the new signal coming at AA prime is obviously of different voltage because it is a sinusoidal generator, right? So that is the reason we get different voltages, and that is the reason we call this effect as transit time effect, right? So apart from these three effects, the main effect which causes the conventional microwave tubes to fail at 300 megahertz or above is transit time. However, the irony is that researchers use this transit times effect itself to make them usable at frequencies above 300 megahertz. And how they did that, we'll study in this klystrons, TWTs and magnetrons. So these are the main microwave tubes which will be studied. So all are based on transit time effect only. So they have used this transit time effect to our advantage, we can see. Okay. Now a very important thing, since you will be giving your presentations in this week or next week probably. So you see there are no big sentences here. I have written main cause is transit time. I have written the effect. I have not mentioned any big sentences here. I have written irony here. I have not written what is the irony. I am elaborating on what is the irony, right? So this is the way you should present. You should just write punch points here and not write the whole sentences and just read it. So if you are just writing the whole sentences, there is no need to present, right? You can just email the file to the concerned audience. They can just read it. So you should always write punch points and then present them and elaborate on them. We as teachers usually use full sentences, as you might see in the further slides, because we have to present it to you. We'll send this PPT to you, so you should be able to write in the exam. That is the reason we may use big sentences and all. Okay, so let's proceed further. So the next question is obviously how the microwave tubes work, right? So what we have is, we can think this in terms of a BJT. What does a BJT do? Any NPN BJT, PNP BJT, or MOSFET for that matter, what they do, they basically mainly are used to amplify signals, right? So how they amplify signals? We have a AC source as input, right? And we get a AC output which is amplified, right? Means, for example, if you give a 5 volts, the voltage gain is 2. How much I will get at the output? I will get a output signal of a peak to peak amplitude 10 volts, right? But how is the signal amplified? There is something called as law of conservation of energy. If I am giving 5 volts, ideally I should get less than or equal to 5 volts at the output, but I am getting an amplified signal. So from where did the extra energy came? That is the question, right? So if you see the voltage divider bias network, we always have a DC source also there. We are giving the main input as AC, but we have a DC source to bias the BJT, right? So from the DC source we are getting the extra energy. So somehow the DC power is getting converted to AC power. That is the same thing which we are using in microwave tubes. So in simple way you can understand with the help of BJT. Okay, so that DC source which we are using in BJT is the electron beam which is used in microwave tube, and the AC input is nothing but the RF input, which is a high frequency signal. That's why radio frequency, right, which is a range of high frequencies, right? So what happens in a microwave tube is, the electron beam is made to interact with the EM waves, or you can say RF waves. So somehow they are made to interact. So how they are made to interact, that we'll see, and transfer the kinetic energy to the microwave signals. Whose kinetic energy? The electrons will be traveling, so they will be having a kinetic energy. So somehow if we retard them, that is reduce their energy, naturally the energy will be transferred to the microwave signal and we'll get amplification. So this transfer of energy is also called as interaction, or interaction with the electromagnetic field in a slow wave structure, and this gives amplification through transfer of energy. So again, this is a very crude way I have explained you with the help of BJT as an analogous thing. So we will again see this in detail in the construction and working of the tubes. So now further, these tubes are classified into O type or linear beam tubes. So O type tubes are also called as linear beam tubes. And then we have M type tubes or cross beam tubes. Means M type tubes are also called as cross beam tubes. So let's see this one by one. What do they mean? So let's see O type tubes. So as the diagram indicates, what is happening? As I said, we have an electron beam here. So you can see this as analogous to electron beam as analogous to DC power in a BJT. So I have an electron beam which is traveling towards right. Then I have a magnetic field oriented in this direction, and I have an electric field oriented in this direction. So if you see, the direction of the fields and the electron beam is aligned, right? So the tube in which this scenario is seen is called as O type tube. So the accelerating electric field and the static magnetic field used to focus the electron beam are aligned. Okay, so you might say, sir, where is the RF wave here? You know that electric field and magnetic field together constitute what? RF wave, right? So these are nothing but are constituents of RF wave. And why they are called as O type tubes? Because they derive the name from the French TPO, giving the name O type. So this O gives the name O type. So what is this TPO? We'll see further. Okay. So again, what happens in a O type tube is, the electric field and the magnetic field used to focus the electron beam are aligned. Now why the accelerating term is mentioned here, that we'll see in some time again. So then linear beam tubes or the O type tubes, remember O type tubes are also called as linear beam tubes. They are further classified. So they are classified as klystrons, hybrid tubes and TWTs. So what are klystrons? They can be multiple beam klystrons or reflex klystrons. They can also be multiple cavity klystrons or clustered cavity klystrons. So these multiple beam klystrons and clustered cavity klystrons are not in our syllabus, so we will not discuss this. So we have two cavity klystron, multiple cavity klystron and reflex klystron. So we will study these two types of klystrons only. We will discard these two. Then we have TWTs. What are TWTs? They stand for traveling wave tubes. So they are further classified as helix TWTs and coupled cavity TWTs. So we will study these TWTs further. So that will come in the next lecture. So today we will study klystrons. Then apart from this, we also have hybrid tubes. So they are twistrons. So if you see, this is a combination of a klystron and a TWT. So they are together called as klystrons, and we also have extended interaction klystrons. So again, these are not in the syllabus, so we'll not cover this. So we'll only study multiple cavity klystron, reflex klystron, apart from two cavity klystron and these TWTs. Okay, so again these are also called as O-type tubes. Okay, so then what we have, M-type tubes. So what are M-type tubes? So if you see, the electric field and the magnetic field are perpendicular. The DC electric field and magnetic field is perpendicular, and the electron beam is in this direction. So in the M-type tube, DC electric field is perpendicular to the static magnetic field, and the general motion of electron beam is perpendicular to both the fields. So the electron beam is traveling like this towards right. As you see, the electric field is perpendicular to it, and this symbol indicates what? I hope you know it by now. You are in final year now. So this is what going inside the paper or going into the slide. So E is perpendicular to B as well as the electron beam. So DC electric field is perpendicular to magnetic field, and the general motion of electron beam is perpendicular to both the fields. So that is clearly seen from this diagram. And it is in contrast to linear beam tubes. What is happening in linear beam tubes? They were not perpendicular, they were aligned, right? They were aligned as written here. So that is in contrast to linear beams. So M-type tubes are named after the French TPOM. So this has a French meaning, so most of us don't understand French, so we will not go into that. So in English it means tubes for propagation of waves in a magnetic field. So from this M or this M we get the name M-type tubes. Again they are also called as what? Cross field tubes. So again, cross field tubes or M-type tubes, they can be divided into two parts: distributed emission tubes, injected beam tubes. So distributed emission tubes are magnetron and cross field amplifier. So injected beam tubes are cross field amplifier, MBW carcinotron, and voltage tuned magnetron. So from this we have only two devices, which is magnetron and BWO, which is the backward wave oscillator in the syllabus. So rest all we will discuss. But remember, you know this diagram, the difference between them, and what are O-type and M-type tubes, because it is a very important question from exam point of view. Sorry. So next is comparison between O-type and M-type tubes. So O-type and M-type and the parameter we have. So what are the devices for O-type? As we saw, klystron, reflex klystron, or a TWT. Then magnetron, forward wave crossfield amplifier, backward wave crossfield amplifier, or backward wave crossfield oscillator. This is nothing but a backward wave oscillator or a BW. So how does the energy conversion takes place? It takes place from kinetic energy to RF energy in a O-type tube, and in a M-type tube, for example in a magnetron, it goes from potential energy to RF energy. So you may not understand what is this, so we'll see that when we study the structures. Okay. So then the next parameter is fields. So as we saw, this is clearly visible from this diagram, this and this diagram, right? So that can be one of the difference. So DC electric fields and magnetic fields are parallel to the direction of electron flow and magnetic field required for focusing. Parallel in the sense they are aligned, so it is one and the same thing. And here they are what? Mutually perpendicular, right? So then gain is very high in O-type tubes, which is 30 to 70 dB, but it is very low or moderate in the range of 6 to 20 dB for M-type tubes. And bandwidth is octave bandwidth is possible for low and medium power tubes. But if you have very high power tubes in the range of gigawatts, for example, the bandwidth is 10 to 20%. So now many students don't understand what is this octave bandwidth, what is 10 to 20% bandwidth. So let's understand that. So you see, this is a simple graph. So this is, you can say this is a filter graph. So how we calculate the bandwidth? We take 3 dB down, right? So you take 3 dB down, you will get 2 points, extrapolate them on the x-axis. So what you get? Upper cutoff frequency, lower cutoff frequency, or upper band edge and lower band edge, and you have a center frequency along the peak. So this is the center frequency, this is the upper band edge, this is the lower band edge, right? So if the upper band edge is twice the lower band edge, then it is called as octave bandwidth. That is, upper band edge is equal to 2 times the lower band edge when we get, then it is called as octave bandwidth. Means suppose this lower band edge is 2 gigahertz, and if I say this is at 4 gigahertz, so 4 is what? 2 times 2. So I am getting the upper cutoff frequency, for example, as 2 times the lower cutoff frequency. Then we say we have achieved octave bandwidth, and it is a very good bandwidth or broad bandwidth we can say. So next we also saw 10% bandwidth is possible for O-type tubes. So what is 10% bandwidth? So if you have a center frequency, let's say again 2 gigahertz. So you have 10% bandwidth for this filter, means 5% to the right and 5% to the left. So you have 2 gigahertz at the center. So what is 10% of 2 gigahertz? 0.2. So what is 5%? Half of 0.2. So 0.1 means 0.1 gigahertz to the right, 0.1 gigahertz to the right. So this 5%, left 5% gives together how much? 10%. So this is percentage bandwidth. Okay. So again, octave bandwidth is possible for low and medium power tubes, and 30 to 40% bandwidth for low and medium power tubes in a M type. But for high power tubes, 10 to 15% bandwidth is possible. Then power is moderate here and high here. The noise exhibited by O-type tubes is low, and here it is high. The O-type tubes are bulky. So why they are bulky is because they require an external magnetic field usually to operate, and these are relatively light, which are M-type tubes. So analysis is, these are easy to analyze and these are difficult to analyze. Okay, so you can expect this question as a 5 marks compulsory question. So we have seen this. So next very important thing you should know before going to microwave tubes is how the electrons are accelerated and decelerated. So now can you tell me what is this structure? So last module we studied microwave resonators, right? So they resonate at a particular frequency, right? So I can say in layman terms that inductive reactance becomes equal to the capacitive reactance. So I get a resonant frequency. So at a particular frequency this resonates. So this is a resonator, or it is also called as a cavity, right? We saw in the previous module. So these are my cavities. So there are 2 cavities here, and this is a waveguide. So remember, this is a cross section of a circular waveguide. So you have to take this and rotate it by 360 degree. Okay, so then we'll get a circular waveguide. So it will be hollow in this part, remember. So again, this is a cross section of a circular waveguide. So if I have an electric field given in this direction, positive here and negative here, remember it is a electric field coming from the AC signal. So it is a oscillating electric field, and have electron beam in this direction. So what will happen? Can you think and tell me to the electron? Just think over it. What will happen is these electrons will see the negative potential of the electric field. So these electrons by nature are negative, and this is also negative. So what will happen? They'll repel each other, right? So there will be a repulsive force between them. So since there is a repulsive force, can I say the velocity of the electrons is reduced, right? So again, electron beam is traveling towards the right with a certain velocity, but they encounter an electric field in this polarity along their travel direction. So if the negative polarity of the electric field is here, and electrons by nature are negatively charged, what will happen? There will be a repulsive force between them. So because of this repulsive force, the velocity of the electron beam will be reduced. So what we say, there is a deceleration of electrons, right? So if this is the case, we will have deceleration of electrons. So there can be the other case also. Since I have said this is a oscillating electric field, so it will go from plus to minus sinusoidally, it will vary. So in the next cycle I will have plus and minus, right? So here I have plus now, and these are again by nature negatively charged electrons. So they will get attracted. So since they are attracted, now what will happen to the velocity? The velocity will increase, right? So what I have, as opposed to deceleration, here I will have acceleration of electrons. So now the signal will continuously be coming, right? So what will happen? There is continuous acceleration and deceleration of electrons. So means the velocity is continuously changing. So this change in the velocity of electrons while moving due to RF input is known as what? Velocity modulation. So this velocity modulation in a klystron comes for 10 marks. So that we will study further. So this is a very important concept. So then we study the first microwave tube, which is klystron. So it is the simplest vacuum tube that can be used for amplification or generation. Generation means what? It will work as an oscillator. So it can be used as an amplifier also, or as an oscillator also. And it works on the principle of velocity modulation. So all the tubes which we study work on the principle of velocity modulation, in fact, and they are classified as two cavity klystron, multi cavity klystron, and reflex klystron. So today we'll study these first two and we'll keep this for tomorrow. Okay. So I forgot to give animations here, so let me just do it so that, yeah, that would be fine. Doesn't take much of a time. Yeah. So this is the construction of a two cavity klystron. So at the first glance you might say, "Sir, it is very complicated," but as I always say, just focus on the concepts. Okay. So what is happening is, first thing, I should have a circular waveguide, right? So you draw the cross section of a circular waveguide. So you start from here, then you draw a cavity which will be having an input. So you come like this, then you draw the, so this is the input cavity, then you draw the output cavity, give space for output, close it, and it is symmetric about the z-axis, so draw it like this without the inputs here. Okay. So then what to show, since we have a electron beam, right? So draw, for that what we require, which device sends the electron gun, right? So then you draw the electron gun here, right? So the electron gun will obviously have a cathode here, so that cathode you take, it will be negatively biased obviously, so and positive will come to the collector. So what is this? This is negatively charged, this is positively charged, right? So you are almost done with the diagram. Then what is this dashed lines, that we'll see later. Okay. So this is the heart of your diagram, that's it, you have to draw this. The main thing which you are seeing complicated is because of this dashed lines. If you remove that, it becomes very simple. Okay. So again, what you have to do, first draw the cross section of circular waveguide, then draw the electron gun and the collector, and then join them with a potential, and make sure the negative potential is given to the cathode, because that is the case, right? So what is happening, electrons are negatively charged, so from the negative side they are bombarded, right? So and this is a collector which is positively charged, so obviously they are getting attracted in this direction, right? But they should not go haywire, right? So they should travel along the circular waveguide only. So what we do, we use focusing electrodes, which are also called as grids. So you might have seen this in vacuum tubes, tetrodes, diodes, etc., pentodes. So these are the focusing grids used to focus the electron beam along the z-axis only, along the axial direction we see. Okay. And then we give the RF input from here, which is to be amplified. So this is the signal of low amplitude, and somehow it gets amplified by some factor, and we catch the output here. And this is what, a cavity, and this is the other cavity. Why this is called as catcher cavity? Because it catches the signal from here and gives it to the output. And why this is called as buncher cavity, that we'll understand during the working. Okay. So this is what I have told, the construction of the two cavity klystron. Okay. So apart from this, you have to explain what is drift space. So as you see, the distance between the two cavities is the drift space. So the distance between buncher cavity and catcher cavity is drift space. Then I talked about focusing grids. Then what is beam potential? The voltage given at this DC source is the beam potential. So the velocity of the electrons is decided by the beam potential. Okay. Again, the velocity of the electrons will be decided by the beam potential. Then we have interaction space. What is the interaction space? The space between the focusing electrodes, that is between the extreme ends of the circular waveguide, is the interaction space. So that is shown here. Okay. And it is along the cavities only, mainly, because the interaction will happen there. So what is that interaction, we'll see during the working. Then we have the collector we discussed, and the cavities also we discussed. So let's see how a two cavity klystron works. Okay. So once you switch on the source, what will happen? The electron gun will start bombarding electrons, right? So, and they are negatively charged. Since they see a positive charge here and they have a focusing electrodes here, they will travel with a velocity corresponding to the DC source or the beam potential, and they will travel to the right, right? But what is happening? So this is the electron beam traveling towards right, correct? So what will happen further? I am giving a RF input here. So RF is a sinusoidal input, right? So it will come here, right? So it will generate a sinusoidal electric field here, right? So since it is sinusoidal in nature, obviously it will be an alternating field since it is a RF signal. So what will happen? At one point I'll have plus to the left side and negative to the right side. In the other cycle I'll have a minus here and a plus here. So what will happen? So I'll be having these two cases, right? At one point I'll have minus here, plus here. At the next instant I'll have plus here, minus here. So I'll have continuous what? I'll have deceleration of electrons as well as acceleration of electrons, right? So as the electrons pass here, since you have a sinusoidal wave, what will happen when the electrons encounter the exact zero potential? There will be no change in the velocity of electron. But when they encounter a positive potential, as shown here, what will happen? They will get accelerated. When they encounter a negative potential, they will get decelerated. So what is happening? Some electrons are accelerated, some are decelerated, right? Some are not accelerated, neither decelerated, right? So at a moment, what will happen? Some electrons will form a bunch. That means at a point they will be in one place only. So this is called as what? Electron bunching. So that bunching happens where? Starts to happen where? Here. So here the velocity started changing. So this process is what? Velocity modulation. So where does the velocity modulation start? At this cavity. So since the velocity modulation starts here, means the bunching starts here. Means this is called as what? That's why this is called as buncher cavity, because the bunches form here, right? So this is the buncher cavity. So as the velocity propagates further, electron beam propagate further with varying velocity, they will form bunches. So these bunches will travel further. So what will happen? At one point the bunch will arrive exactly here, right? But this is also what? A cavity. And what we studied about cavity in the last module, that they resonate at a particular frequency, right? So this is also resonating at a particular frequency, for example 2 gigahertz. So if this resonates at 2 gigahertz, will give an input corresponding to 2 gigahertz only. So you can amplify a 2 gigahertz signal only here, or very near to that. So the bunches are also formed corresponding to 2 gigahertz, right? So what will happen? So these electrons, when they come here, since it also resonates at 2 gigahertz, the electrons are also modulated, velocity modulated. So they are forming a bunch here. So when they come here, they are also modulated corresponding to 2 gigahertz. So they will give the energy to the RF wave here, because they are also at 2 gigahertz, and this cavity also resonates at 2 gigahertz. So that signal will be given here. And since they are in a bunch form, that energy will be transferred to what? The RF signal. So the RF signal already had some amplitude here, for example 1 volt, very crude example. So that 1 volt will come here, but since this bunch has to give the energy to someone before going to the collector, so it will be given to what? The RF signal. So the RF signal will be amplified and taken out here, right? So this is our 2 cavity klystron box, right? And since this cavity is catching the bunch, or catching the energy from the bunch, that's why it is called as what? Catcher cavity, right? So the important statement is what? When electrons travel through this space, that is this drift space, they are subjected to RF potential, that is the electric field we can say, at a frequency which is determined by the cavity resonant frequency, as I said, which is nothing but the input frequency, right? So this is the working of a klystron. So this is shown the concept of velocity modulation. So if you have not understood how the bunch forms, so you can explain with the help of this Applegate diagram. So in the exam you get a question, explain the concept of velocity modulation with the help of Applegate diagram for a 2 cavity klystron. So you can draw this diagram and you can explain. So let's say the electron is at position x, so it is corresponding to 0 potential, right? So it is not changing the velocity. So let's say I have some corresponding velocity. So this y-axis is distance, x-axis is time. So what is velocity? Distance upon time. So this slope gives me the velocity, right? So when will the velocity be 0? When the slope is 0. So slope is 0 means along the x-axis. So when it is exactly vertical, for this I can say it is what? Highest, right? For this it is moderate, I can say. So for x the velocity is something normal, right? But if I take a positive potential, so it is encountering a positive electric field, so electrons get attracted to positive potential. So what will happen? They will get accelerated, right? So since the velocity means what? Velocity has increased, means what? The slope should increase, right? So if you see, this slope was like this, now it has increased here, right? And for negative potential, right, let's say for position z, what is happening? It is negative potential, so there is a repulsive force, so the electrons are decelerated, so slope should reduce, right? So the corresponding slope is reduced. So this is called as reference electron ER, the one which is at x position. The one at y position is coming late, so late electron. and the one at Z is called as EE, that is early electron. So early electron is decelerated, this is neither accelerated nor decelerated, and late electron is accelerated. So at one point, as they travel further in space, what will happen? They'll form a bunch, they'll come meet at a point. So that meeting at a point is called as what? Bunching. Okay, so this is the electron bunch which is forming. So similarly, further down the cycle we'll have one more bunch. So each cycle will correspond to one bunch. So no potential, no change in velocity, positive potential acceleration and negative potential deceleration. So this is called as what? Velocity modulation. So then we have multi-cavity klystron. What is the problem with two cavity klystron is the gain or the amplification factor which we have is quite low. So we want a high gain, right? Or we want to say we can, again we can take the example of BJT is we have voltage gain, right? So it should be as high as possible. So if you want to increase the voltage gain, what we can use is use a multi-cavity klystron. So as the name says, here there were two cavities, so it was called as two cavity klystron. If I have multi-cavity means more than two cavities. So I'll insert more cavities here, right? So that is what is done here. So even though this diagram looks different, you can draw the same exact diagram, just show one or two more cavities here. Okay, so how will that amplify? So that, let's see here. So what will happen? Just assume there is one more cavity here, or better I'll take this one. So a bunch will be forming here along this space. What will happen? A bunch will come here also. So it will get further accelerated and decelerated, right? So that, so what was happening? Let's say first it is a two cavity klystron, so it will get amplified here. But since it is going further, it will get further amplified here, right? So if I have one more cavity, it will get further amplified here. So what is happening? The gain is getting increased in a multi-cavity klystron. So that is the output of a multi-cavity klystron. So now, ideally what we do is all the cavities are identical. So they all resonate at same frequency. Okay. But if we tune them to slightly different frequencies by changing the dimensions, then the gain of amplifier will be reduced, but the bandwidth will be increased. Means the percentage bandwidth which we saw, that will be increased. So from narrow bandwidth we can go to broad bandwidth. So this method of tuning is called as staggered tuning. So just to summarize what we did today, a high overall gain can be achieved by connecting several cavities in cascade. So this is what multi-cavity klystron. And a klystron amplifier tube will give a high gain if all the cavities are tuned to the same frequency, but the bandwidth will be reduced, right? So we can have a we will have to have a trade-off between these 2 points, and the amplifier bandwidth will be more if cavities are tuned to slightly different frequencies, right? So next is what? Reflex klystron. So it is not an amplifier, but it is an oscillator. So we'll discuss this tomorrow.